So again, this session is on how you as individuals can be agents of change. You don't need to get any older or become an expert. You yourself are perfectly positioned where you're at as a young person to take action in your community. My name is Jenny Reese. I was working at the University of Wyoming for several years as an undergrad student. I initiated a program called the Good Mule Project. And we'll get into a little bit in a few minutes about what that looks like and what that meant. It's kind of a funny name, I know, and doesn't really give you a whole lot of descriptors on what a mule or a mule project would look like. So I want to also introduce my fellow co-presenters.
Hi, my name is Amy Van Cleve. I am currently a student at the University of Wyoming, and in my freshman year, I started working with Jenny on the Good Mule Project.
Hi, and I'm Katie Klein-Hesselink. I am currently the Director of Member Services for Colorado Campus Compact, which is a membership organization of campuses dedicated to advancing the public good. But in my prior incarnation, I directed the center that Jenny and Amy both worked at when the Good Mule Project was initiated.
All right, so we're going to start off with, again, what is this Good Mule that I've been talking about? This was a project that myself and a best friend, his name is Trent Minkowski, he's now working on his PhD program at the University of Arizona in physics, so he can't join us today, he's off doing other things. But back about 5 years ago when we were 23-ish, we realized at the University of Wyoming, where we were from as undergrads, there wasn't a whole lot of discussion going on about social justice. Even the word was something that a lot of people shied away from in their conversations, whether in the classroom or outside the classroom. So we didn't see a lot of other young people getting involved in these critical discussions of what's going on in our communities, or whether that was there in Laramie, which is a very small rural town, best known, sadly, for the tragic passing of Matthew Shepard. That's been several years ago, but a lot of people just know our community as the place where hate crimes kind of took to the national scene. So being in Laramie, it kind of seems strange that while we'd had these momentous events happen in our community, our young people were not, again, talking about what can we be doing to prevent that from ever happening again, but not only on that particular issue, but also on issues that they themselves were passionate about. So we weren't looking for students who all identified as being passionate about LGBT rights or even human rights. We just wanted to find the kids who had passion and wanted to do something with that. So we started the Good Mule Project. It's kind of got a lengthy description, a student-led initiative to increase awareness of social and environmental justice issues, to encourage civic literacy, and to advance cross-cultural understanding. Now we'll talk a little bit about that in terms of scale and what that actually looks like in paper and in action. But what that really meant is that we wanted to create a space on campus and in our community where students could connect with other like-minded individuals and start planning for change, actually getting down to the nitty-gritty and enacting different maybe laws, or maybe just talking to representatives, or perhaps taking a stand and letting the university know our feelings about different policies that were affecting us on campus. So again, the whole idea was just to get these folks in the same room together to start one training for how to do something that grandiose, because you always get folks, especially I've seen at this conference, everyone's like, go out and make a difference. You, the next generation, you're the ones who are going to affect and be the face of where our country heads, and yet they never start with the super small steps of, okay, where do I go from point A? Or what does point A look like? Where do I start? So that's all we were looking to do. So 5 years later, fast forward, we'd had, with the Good Mule, we ended up having an annual social justice training conference that was held every spring. We've now moved it to the fall. Some things you learn along the way. But what we've come away with is some really pivotal lessons that we think it would be helpful for you to know and to walk away with today with that information on the things that people aren't going to tell you and that you might need to know when you decide to take the first step in creating change. So I'm going to hand it off to Amy.
Hi. So, one of the first things that we learned from the mule is a combination of the term like be yourself and teamwork. And what we figured out is every new person that got involved in the mule had something else to contribute to it. They had different passions and different skills, and through that we were able to kind of morph it so that it was almost like a living being that changed every year. When I joined the mule, I had a big interest in politics and in women's involvement, and we kind of morphed around that. Other people were really, really passionate about environmental issues, and as we're forming this conference every year, each person has something else to contribute in what topics should we talk about, what speakers should we bring, what workshops should we have, so that we were able to really reflect the diversity of our student body in a really concise way. And we also learned a big lesson about scale of the conference and scale of the activities of the mule. So it's really great to say we're going to have 2 events every month and we're going to have 50 students come to each event minimum. But you really need to look at the size of your student body, the size of your resources, and really devote your time where it fits best. So while it might be nice to say we'll have 2 or 3 events every month, it's a really fast way to wear yourselves out, and the quality of your events greatly diminishes. So what we learned is it's better to focus on having the conference be a big part of one semester, and then maybe have 3 events in the other semester to keep students engaged and keep going, but without overextending ourselves or our budget.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about institutional structure, because this was a student-initiated activity that in the beginning had no funding tied to it. It was just all about student power. However, as soon as we started talking about the actual logistics of hosting this conference, money became an issue really, really quickly, right? I mean, we needed space. We wanted to have a great motivating speaker for the keynote. We wanted to bring in a number of presenters. And so suddenly there was a budget issue. Now, it turned out that the administration at the university was wildly supportive of this idea. It caught me off guard, because social justice has been a term that we have traditionally tiptoed around, but I think because it came from the students, the administration really wanted to put some dollars behind that. But one of the things that we learned is that you have to think about who you're taking money from, because we all have self-interest in this process. Each of us wants to promote what we want to see happen, and that was also true of the administration. So while we had students who were espousing some very cutting edge and radical ideas that could have shaken things up in a big way, that became tempered as soon as we started taking institutional dollars. So that was definitely a big takeaway for us, that the more money you take, you have to be very intentional in that conversation and asking for funds about where you're coming from and what your aims are and what the expectations of the agency or the department is that's giving you money, because if those are competing interests, you can get yourself into trouble. So I would really encourage you, as you think about doing your own projects, to sit down and have those relational meetings with folks that you're asking for funds or resources from, to make sure that what you're doing is in the best interest of everybody. And if you sit down, it's like dating, guys. I mean, if you sit down and you don't really jive with the person that's you're asking for funding, the interests aren't matching up, then that's not somebody that you want to take money from. You want to make sure that your interests aren't competing, but that they're working collectively for the greater good. So that was a huge lesson for us, because in our first year we did an incredible job. Jenny did a wonderful job fundraising. We had contributions from many different departments on campus, but then it became an issue of, well, how do we make sure we deliver what these folks are looking for? And so that skewed the mission a bit in that first year, trying to sort that out. So a word of caution.
One of my favorite things to reflect on while we were actively working on the Good Mule. The Good Mule still exists today. Next year it'll be its 6th anniversary. Something I don't think we ever really anticipated it getting that far along in the process, because when it was so new, we were so ingrained and entrenched in how are we going to make this grow bigger and bigger versus like we don't even have time to consider the outcomes of this many years from now. And so thinking about identity and whatnot. But a part of it that I have always really been excited about is the different relationships that were formed out of the creation of the Good Mule Project. I started off as an AmeriCorps member working in the University of Wyoming's SLICE office, Service Leadership and Community Engagement. I was just there. I can't even really remember my title at the position. It was something, I was coordinator of community liaison, something to the effect, outreach. But while I was doing that, I got really busy starting to think on, well, what is this program going to look like, and how are we going to make it catch on amongst the students and get people involved. So while that was happening, we slowly were building on partners, but one thing that always makes me feel like people need to know that when you do take on a new project, you can be sure that you are going to meet individuals who are going to help your own personal growth and help you get to the places where you want to go in life. So it's not always this relationship of giving back. You do get a lot out of it yourself. For instance, today I have 2 people who are really influential in the Good Mule's journey. My former boss, supervisor, Katie, who has really helped me get to the places where I want to go in my life now that I'm 28 and I'm no longer 23, and that seems so long ago. But we've had to, of course, understand that we're also passing on this information to younger generations, or younger folks. Actually, I think we're same generation-ish. Okay. But there's Amy over here who I met while she was in high school. The Laramie High School had a very active Amnesty International program, which we knew that those would be good partners for us to bring on board, because they were already excited about talking about social justice and community change. So she was one of the first people I met, I think, in year 1, who showed a lot of energy and excitement and a natural leader, even though she was 16 years old at the time. So that's something that I think you all should consider when you get involved. It's not always about the folks that you're helping. You are essentially, by helping other people, learning to help yourselves create new skills and really create a new path for yourself, whether you intend to or not. So we're going to move on to the next piece. Okay, so one thing that we were always really excited about, the whole focus of the Good Mule was acting on the energy of youth for issues that they are passionate about. It's not about us telling them, hey, we've got this awesome organization, you should come be a part of that. No, we want to empower you to take the ideas that you have to bettering your community and giving you the skills and resources and putting them into action. So this isn't a new concept. It's been youth engagement and youth leading movements has been something that we've seen throughout history. A lot of people like to go back to the civil rights movement and talk about what we saw out of students there, but I think really more inspiring is knowing what people here at this conference are already doing. I had a chance to look through the schedule, and I believe it's page 45. Hopefully I can find it. But two of the youth MCs here already started organizations. Casey Sokolovic, hopefully she's not in here. If I butcher your name, I'm really sorry. But someone at this conference started an organization that helps sea turtles. Another young individual, Ryan, a junior at a high school, has co-founded the Youth Action Council for the Institute of Global Education and Service Learning. So we know that students really shouldn't be seen as folks to get involved with something. They are imbued with a unique sense of power and ability to get out there and be at the forefront of cause or of change. And these are some examples that we've seen within just even the past 3 years. Let's see, the picture in the top left corner, that's at a march in Washington, D.C. in 2012 to stop the transcontinental pipeline. Then the one in the top right corner, that was a really big movement and is still taking shape each year. By the very provocative name Slut Walk, if you've heard about that. Those were engaged by young individuals and actually folks of all ages who felt the need to speak out against some of the, injustices that were affecting women just by the simple way that you present yourself. Some folks took that as reason to put you in a box or treat you in a certain way, and we know that's not okay. In the bottom right corner is a conference on youth change at the that's put on by Oxfam International, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But it's a conference where many young people across the country get together and talk about how they're actually going to make change at the international level. So that's something that we see a lot of folks also interested in. And then the two young people in the corner are friends of mine. Anna Guyton, she actually helped back when the Occupy movement was really big. She was the first person to bring back to her community the General Assembly decision-making body to her Occupy small movement in Burlington, Vermont. Started out with, I think, 20 people getting together each day to talk about these bigger picture issues facing our economy and how they, in their small Burlington, Vermont, not a big place, could be a part of that movement. And so each night they would get together and discuss, what do we want to see for our community? What direction are we actively contributing to taking it? The other young person there is Jimmy Kelly. He, at 23, started a program called Inspire St. Louis to help folks who identified as lower income SES to make sure that their children were able to get into college preparatory high schools so that they could go on to universities and colleges, but starting with the pure, very simple idea of helping them fill out applications and helping them pay to even fill out an application to get in a school that would provide them with that opportunity and access.
So we've talked a lot about the different things that youth have done, but there's a reason why it's kind of specific to young people who can be change makers, and that's because we're in a really different position in life than a lot of older people might be. We have the opportunity to really take advantage of the fact that you've seen at this conference so many people continue to say, you're the next generation, you're going to be the change makers. Well, there's a reason for that, and if you take advantage of the fact that they believe that about you and really step up and show them what you can do, then they're going to listen and they're going to take you even more seriously than they will take maybe Jenny or Katie, which is hard to believe, but it's actually true. Again, I started working with Jenny when I was like 16 years old because I was involved in my Amnesty International group. And something that we found out is that our position as high school students, which I believe many of you are, gave us an opportunity to really be a rallying point for the community. People have a lot of faith in the next generation, and again, these are your parents and your friends' parents who are all like big decision makers and will really focus around what you're doing and what you're passionate about and do what they can to help you step up. So, for instance, we went door to door. We went door to door and we knocked on every single door in our community trying to get money to build a well in a developing country. And because we were 16 and in high school, people were willing to take that seriously and give us money, and they weren't scared or concerned that we were proselytizing or whatever. It's a unique position of being young that people will engage with you on a different level than they will when you're an adult, and they expect you to be serious and follow the rules. When you're younger, you can pave the way and let everyone else follow behind you.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo that. I will say that when I worked at the university, if I needed access to the president of the university, for example, there was no way for me to do that on my own. I had to go through my students. He would entertain meetings with that, but it was very complicated for me because he wanted to hear what the students, as his constituents, had to say. And so, fortunately, I worked with a wonderful, very bright, clever group of folks who were able to advance the aims of our projects and get the ears of people in positions of power in a way that I would not have been able to do. That said, I want to go back to this concept. I've been thinking about this a lot over this conference, the concept of self-interest, because I've heard everyone here say, I'm really passionate about giving back to the community. I just want to give back to the community. But at some point you need to consider what that does for you. Because if you're not for yourself first, then who's for you? And in fact, what we know is that students who get involved in community work reap some very real benefits. For example, students that participate in service learning courses tend to go on, there's a higher likelihood that they will be retained in their school, that's especially true in higher education. It's more likely that they'll be involved in activities outside of their courses, so in clubs and projects like the Good Mule. It's more likely that they'll vote. It's more likely that upon graduation from college, they'll go into careers for the common good, so they will dedicate their lives to advancing change. In addition to that, in terms of getting involved in this kind of work, especially a student-led initiative, you have the opportunity to take leadership roles that would never be available otherwise. And what that means is that you're exposed to ideas around communication, how to communicate effectively across diverse groups, how to resolve conflict, how to work in a team, and ultimately, whether you plan to go on to college or whether you plan to go into the workforce, regardless of those things, those are exactly the skills that employers, regardless of your discipline, are looking for. So it's a real opportunity to build your resume for your future endeavors now when you're still young and in school. So I strongly encourage this kind of work because we see the benefits every day.
So one thing you do need to consider when you get involved in these kinds of activities is also what you're giving up in a sense. So being committed to a project, a group, a policy change, whatever you want to do is going to take something of you, and you need to be aware of that as you're getting into it. So you have school to think about, you have your extracurriculars. I don't know if you can see, I have music notes on my tie. I used to be in band and choir. Those are activities that I'm sure most of you are involved in, maybe sports. Those all take part of your time, so will this, whatever your project is. And so going into it, you need to be aware of that and sort of make the list of what your non-negotiables are as you might think about it. So when I run campaigns now, And when you're working with a candidate, the first thing you do is you say, what are your non-negotiables? Are you going to have dinner with your family every night? Are you going to go to grandma's 90th birthday? And you set those. So if your non-negotiables are, I'm going to get straight A's in school and I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep every night, then you need to do that because you need to take care of you and put that first. And then say, I'll give 4 hours a week to my cause of choice. And I'll work on the weekends so that after school I can go to this club that I'm involved in. And you need to make sure that you delineate your non-negotiables from this, because as great as it is to say, I'm going to give absolutely everything to this cause, then that drains you really quickly and you get burnt out, and that's not a sustainable practice. So I just really caution you to put you first and really make sure that, like, you know what you're doing.
So we're going to move on to the active portion of this session where you actually get to call the shots and put down on paper some of the thoughts you've probably been thinking about what it is you want to see happen, again, in your communities, whether that's at the local, the state, or the national level. So we're right now handing out a chart that's called the Midwest Academy. The Midwest Academy is actually an organization within itself that teaches individuals of all ages how to organize their community around a different cause. And we're going to break this down and then give you a chance to try it out yourself to see what decisions really have to be made and considered before you attempt to create change. So if you want to click on the first thing. I'm actually going to name my copy of that too. All right, does everyone have a copy so far? All right. So the Midwest Academy is a great tool because it does force you to think about some hard and serious questions about your personal investment in campaigning for change, and also what resources you can bring to the table, as well as what your overall vision is for again, creating change, whether that's taking a few days to teach other youth in your community about a specific issue, whether that's actually creating policy change. So this is a great tool because it takes you step by step through the process. So if you look at the first column, it talks about goals. With goals, this usually requires, again, more thought. So you might initially start out with a pie in the sky type of idea, like, well, I want to make sure that every recyclable material, or how about let's bring this back to your experience, maybe at my school, my high school, I'm going to make sure that every pop bottle or soda can or water bottle gets recycled. All right, so that's kind of where you start off at first, like this is kind of the long-term vision of what we want to do. But in order to get to that piece or make that a successful event, you kind of have to start more at the initial level and considering, for instance, how much time you're going to put towards this. Is this something you're going to do for the next 4 years? Are you graduating this year? Do you have maybe only a semester left to do this? So maybe your goals are going to be broken down into a semester by semester or trimester or a year-long practice in trying to enact these changes in your school. And then the other thing is defining what success is to you. When you get down to it and realize that this does take time, it's beneficial to you and to your community, but what does success really look like for you? Are you willing to put in the time to make 100% change, like there will never ever be another bottle thrown into the regular garbage? If that's what you want to do, then you have to start with laying out what that looks like. So starting with who will be involved in the program? Is it just going to be you? Do you need to get other people involved? As part of your goals, getting like the entire school on board and backing your project? Some of the other questions that it asks are, can you envision short-term or partial victories? So maybe you realize this is going to take 3 years to implement this change, all right? But in the meantime, are you just going to go through the steps and work it out and not celebrate anything else? Because what we know is that when people actually have something to rally behind, like, all right, well, we can't make this big goal happen until we have all these other factors lined up. Maybe we can work towards a smaller victory, such as this year we will, instead, we're going to measure our success as recycling so many pounds of plastic. So you'll have a chance to go all through this with your group here and in the next few minutes, but that's the first column. So then the next, do you want to click it? Click. Yeah. Then the next piece of your planning out what changes you're going to be making is listing down your assets and resources that you already have available and those that you will need to make become available to you. So things like, do you have an office space? Will you even need an office space for all this where people can come and pick up information about what it is you're doing? Do you have relationships already established with key players in your high school or community who can help you talk on behalf of the importance of this? Do you have things as simple as like markers and paper and maybe a copier and maybe a computer that you have access to, again, distribute materials to get other people in the know about what you're doing? So those are some organizational considerations to be made.
All right, the next two columns are about human capital. So this is about how you bring other people into your cause. So once you've identified your project, then you need to figure out how you're going to get folks involved in that project. So this in community organizing, this is generally called power mapping. But so what you do is you identify your issue, and then you think, okay, who do I know that cares about the issue, that would need to be at the table or could help with resources to get this project done? And then you think about, well, who does the problem affect? I mean, who's the group in the community that needs to be at the table so that their voices are heard and that we can invest them in working on this together, okay? And then you need to ask, who are the champions in terms of policymakers, teachers at your school, for example, folks in positions of power that can help you move the needle. But at the same time, you need to think, who's against me? Who are the people that are not into this idea? Because it's important to know that your aim is not necessarily to change those minds. You may be able to get at them through a roundabout way, through people who have influence on them, but you don't want to waste your time trying to divert your energy that way. You really want to bring aboard the people who support you in your work. And then we're talking about targets. And this is really a power issue as well. Who are the people that have the resources to help you get what you want? And so that's again looking at people in leadership positions, etc., and whether or not they are allies or opponents to your cause, so that you know where to spend most of your time.
And then the last piece is your tactics. So if you are looking at making a policy change in your community and you want to talk to your city council, maybe the first step isn't to organize a big rally. Maybe the first step is to go and talk to your city council and meet with them and go to their meetings and know where they stand on the issue. Similarly, if you are trying to make a change in your high school and you want a stop bullying initiative maybe the first step isn't necessarily going to be to have a walkout or a sit-in, but maybe it's working with teachers in your high school and working with the other students and seeing where they're involved. So you want the tactic to match your end goal, and make sure that you do that to scale and also to the appropriate audience. So again, if you are trying to make a change in your high school or at your city council, then you want to meet with those people first and not draw in everyone else and make a big statement. You want to start working with them and building relationships.